After a chaotic battle in the gym, Koki unlocks her true power. At the same time, Okarun and Sakata take on two powerful enemies, leading to an explosive clash against Hase and the human-like alien using the Great Kinta, and eventually winning this battle. We now go back to Seiko, along with Momo and the others, as they prepare to fly to Shimane to find a cure, but the Kido family suddenly resurfaces, and thereafter Momo. Will their flight to Shimane go smoothly? Or will this journey turn into an all-out war at 30,000 feet? Let's find out. In the next scene, Seiko and the rest of the group were already aboard the airplane. When the engine of the aircraft started to roar, Gigi began screaming from extreme nervousness. He asked if they were really going to fly, while Momo fed into his fear by saying that this was it. They were really about to take off, and asked him if he was ready. Vamola then asked Zuma if he was excited, to which he nonchalantly replied yes. Soon enough, their plane finally took off, which startled Momo, thrilled Vamola, and left Gigi dizzy and disoriented. Gigi grew worried and said it felt like his stomach was floating, so Momo comforted him and told him that it's okay. She encouraged him to look outside, saying that if he saw the view, it might help him calm down. However, instead of calming down, Gigi screamed in fear and began shaking, which caused Momo, who was standing on his shoulder, to lose her balance and fall onto Zuma's shoulder. Zuma was surprised by the sudden impact of her falling on him, which left him confused. Momo quickly called out Zuma's name and asked if he could hear her voice, and he immediately calmed down and responded that it was just her, and told her not to scare him like that again. Momo teared up with joy because he still noticed her, but Zuma explained that even though he could still hear her, he couldn't see her anymore, referring to her as girl, and said that his eyes were now completely shot. That angered Momo, and she ordered him not to call her girl because she hated being called that by people, which made Zuma go poker-faced and fall silent. He then said that in that case, Momo should just tell him her name, which confused Momo. He pointed out that she had said she wouldn't tell him, which made Momo go speechless when she remembered she did say that during their first meeting inside Damara. Suddenly, Gigi jumped in and seriously said that Momo didn't need to tell Zuma her name. He said they go to different schools, and plus, they were complete strangers to begin with. He added that once all of this was over, he'd prefer Zuma not have anything more to do with them. Momo cut him off and asked what the problem was, and said she could at least tell him her name. Zuma then answered Gigi and said it was a good idea, and added that he also didn't want to have anything to do with Gigi either. But he said how he interacted with Momo was entirely his decision, and he said all of that with a completely serious expression, without a hint of humor. After that, he added that he still intended to be involved with Momo for the foreseeable future, which caused both Gigi and Momo to blush and become flustered, and he added that he wouldn't be taking any complaints. Because of what he said, Gigi and Momo interpreted that he had feelings for Momo, so Gigi immediately tried to speak to him and said that he couldn't just casually talk about being involved. Zuma got confused and clarified that what he meant was in the sense of socializing, and maybe they had gotten the wrong idea. He explained that he wasn't the clingy boyfriend type and told Gigi to get a hold of himself, which made Gigi blush from embarrassment. Annoyed, Gigi said that he hated him, which made Zuma laugh a little, so Gigi angrily asked what was so funny, and Zuma just smirked and replied that it was nothing. Meanwhile, Momo fell silent, and Vamola noticed Gigi and asked why he was so angry, commenting that it was a rare sight. Gigi then asked Vamola to switch seats with Zuma because he said he couldn't stand sitting next to him. So Zuma teased him and said that he was an embarrassing person and that this was exactly the kind of clingy behavior he was talking about, which made Gigi even angrier and shouted him to shut up. Not long after, Vamola helped Zuma switch seats, but she did it while scolding him, telling him that Gigi was a good person and asking him not to provoke him, to which Zuma silently nodded in agreement. Gigi then teased Zuma and said Vamola was now mad at him, while calling him a baby using a mocking voice, saying "poo whittle thing," which irritated Zuma. Gigi kept teasing him, so Zuma shot back and said that he would remember this moment, calling him an embarrassing, clingy bastard, which made Gigi blush all over again. While the two of them were teasing each other, Momo simply commented that she was happy they were getting along in some capacity. After that, she asked them if their trip hadn't been going surprisingly smooth. But the moment she looked at Seiko, it was as if she immediately jinxed it when she saw that Seiko appeared to be having difficulty breathing and was sweating heavily. She tried calling out to her, but Seiko didn't respond. Gigi then asked what was wrong, and Momo said it looked like her granny was absolutely wrecked. Because of that, Gigi asked Seiko if she was okay and if he should call an attendant, but Seiko answered that she was fine and there was no need to call anyone. Momo then shouted, asking why she was saying such pointless lies, while Gigi pointed out how badly she was sweating. Seiko reasoned that maybe it was because of the medicine she took, so she told them not to worry about it. While they were talking, a suspicious man wearing a cap stood up from his seat and began walking toward them. Worried, Gigi told Seiko that if there was anything he could do, she should just tell him. He also suggested that maybe if he used his chi to heal her wounds, she might feel better. It was then shown that the suspicious man was holding some sort of blade, and as he approached Gigi, he suddenly raised the weapon and tried to stab him from behind. Fortunately, Fuda managed to stop the man, and everyone turned their heads when it happened. Even the other passengers on the plane looked at the man who collapsed, and not long after, they began screaming that he had a knife. Zuma immediately stated that Fuda had reacted on instinct and that there was an enemy on board. Gigi grew alarmed upon hearing that and asked if there really was one. Another man then stood up behind him and attempted to stab him again, but thankfully, Seiko stopped the attacker with a solid kick to the face. The man was thrown back from the impact, while the other passengers began to panic. Seiko then asked her companions who the hell those shitheads were, while Gigi faced another man and shouted at him to stay away. Vamola grew angry at the attackers, while Zuma shouted at them to stop because it was too dangerous. Another man charged from Gigi's side, so Momo shouted to get his attention. Just as the man was about to reach him, Momo threw a piece of luggage into his face and warned everyone that there were more enemies around, so they should be careful. Vamola then put on her hoodie while saying that there were also enemies approaching from her side. But Raya suddenly stood in front of her and told her to stay behind because he would take care of it. Zuma held her hand and told her not to stand up and to hide under the seats. However, her hoodie had already transformed into her kaiju suit, which made Zuma confused by the sensation he felt from her hand. She reassured him that she would be fine because she was a strong individual. Raya was shocked by her transformation, and Zuma remained puzzled by what he was feeling. Gigi then immediately told Vamola to summon the empty space because too many people were in danger. She quickly responded with Roger Wilco. She then activated the heart-pounding hidden mode in her kaiju suit, and not long after, they were all transported into the empty space along with their enemies. Seiko was shocked when the passengers suddenly vanished. Gigi praised Vamola, and Momo was amazed because she didn't know that Vamola could create empty space. Suddenly, one of the men called out to someone he referred to as Mother and reported that Momo and the others were using empty space, which caught her attention. The one he called Mother responded that she already knew they weren't ordinary people, but she had never imagined that they were the bastards from that side. When her disguise came off, it was revealed that she was Naki Kido, along with other members of the Kido family. Naki took a fighting stance, while Gigi and Momo were shocked, saying that this was the old bag from the Kido family. Momo asked what they were doing there, and said weren't they already arrested, and Naki's face showed visible anger upon hearing that. Naki pointed out that she could hear Momo's voice, but asked where she was hiding, and as Momo stood right on her thigh, she yelled that she was right there. Vamola looked confused and asked who that woman was, while one of Kido members was shocked and shouted to Naki that Vamola had suddenly turned into a kaiju. Seiko also asked who those people were, so Gigi explained that they were his landlords from Byakuja village and that they used to sacrifice humans. Because of that, Naki angrily cut in and said to hold on a second. She claimed that Gigi and the others were the real murderers, because according to her, it was their fault the volcano erupted and a massive number of people died, but Momo pointed out that nobody had actually died. While they were arguing, Vamola began fighting and punched one Kido member in the face, sending him flying, while Seiko elbowed another member in the chin. Momo joined in the fight as well, throwing a piece of luggage into the face of another Kido member, and immediately shouted to her allies to be careful of the blades their enemies were holding. Meanwhile, Raya was struggling with his opponent and kept getting punched. He was forced to back away as his enemy arrogantly asked what his problem was and pointed out that he was still young, so he should have more fight in him. Daiki was seated in a row of chairs, trying to ask the others for help. Suddenly, someone grabbed the shirt of Raya's opponent, and when the man turned around, he saw Zuma, which surprised him and made him comment that someone was hiding there the whole time. He said it was wrong to hide while your friends were getting beaten up. The Kido member pulled back his fist, grabbed Zuma by the collar, and delivered a solid punch to his face, then declared that a real man would show up and fight. Raya screamed in panic and yelled for him to stop because Zuma couldn't even see. However, before he could get to his friend, another Kido member jumped in between and kicked him in the stomach. That man challenged Raya to face him instead, which irritated him. Back on Zuma's side, he kept getting punched and kneed in the face by his opponent, but he suddenly grabbed the man's hair and asked if that was his head. In the blink of an eye, he countered and punched the guy in the face, sending him flying and completely rattling his world. Both Raya and his opponent turned and stared at Zuma with wide eyes in shock. Raya's opponent tried to charge at him and launched a series of strikes, all landing on Zuma's face. When Zuma felt the head of the guy who kept attacking, he delivered a brutal headbutt to the nose, causing it to bleed and knocking him unconscious. Even Zuma winced from the pain of that attack and asked where the guy went, since he could no longer feel him. As he kept reaching around, he accidentally grabbed Vamola, which startled him and made him comment that there was some kind of freak here, but Vamola just scolded him and ordered him to get back to his seat, which left Raya stunned. Elsewhere, one of the Kido family members charged straight at Gigi while Naki shouted that they would make sure he felt the hate of the people he had killed. Something seemed to snap deep inside Gigi when he heard the word hate, causing a strange feeling to surge through his body. The man couldn't get close because of Fuda's umbrellas, and before he could get past, Gigi punched him in the face, sending him flying a considerable distance. Naki was infuriated by that and became the next one to charge at him. It seemed that Evil Eye was starting to take over Gigi's body, so he tried to stop it and told him not to come out. He reminded him that he made a promise to Okarun and that he couldn't kill anyone. Naki's eyes narrowed when she saw what was happening to Gigi and sarcastically asked if he was being serious right now, clinging to that little brat. She said she thought she had exorcised that part of him long ago. After saying that, Naki launched a flying kick while shouting that if that was the case, then let Evil Eye out. Gigi managed to block the kick. Naki followed up with her anaconda attack, but it was suddenly stopped, which shocked her. The person who blocked it countered with a double strike, but Naki deflected it easily. It turned out to be Seiko who had stepped in and was now exchanging blows with the Kido family's mother. Naki got irritated and asked who she was, and while trading blows, Seiko replied that she was just an old lady and ordered Gigi to stay behind. Momo kept throwing luggage at their enemies while commenting that these assholes just wouldn't give up, and she yelled at them to go back to prison. As she hit one of them with a suitcase, he shouted that they were arrested for no reason because of them, which annoyed Momo with how ridiculous that sounded. Naki backed up what his members said and declared that it was all their fault. She said they attacked their village and stole it from them, which made Momo yell that everything she was saying was complete nonsense. Unfortunately, one of the airplane's engines suddenly exploded, causing the aircraft to descend rapidly. Momo held tightly onto her seat and anxiously asked if that was a blast of wind just now. One of the Kido family members peeked out the window and immediately told Naki that they had a serious problem, but Naki shouted at him to shut up and said she didn't want to hear them whining. Gigi also looked out the window and saw the engine explosion, realizing that they were now descending, which deeply worried Momo as she asked how that could have happened. Suddenly, a loud thud came from outside the plane, startling Gigi, and he quickly informed the others that something had collided with them. More and more impacts followed, confusing him even more, and when he looked out the window again, it seemed like he saw sea creatures. It turned out they were surrounded by an enormous swarm of flying sharks, or more accurately, sharks swimming through the air, along with floating facial parts like an ear, a nose, and a mouth. After that, they also saw a massive typhoon, and it looked like the plane they were on was heading straight for it, which made Gigi nervous. And to make it worse, there were flying sharks. That caught the attention of the Kido family, and Momo also screamed in shock at what was happening. Vamola, on the other hand, got excited and immediately peeked out the window because she said she wanted to see the sharks, while Zuma was disappointed because he said he wanted to see them too, but couldn't. Momo commented that it made no sense. Why the hell were there sharks in the sky? Soon enough, a great white shark crashed into and pierced the body of their plane, which completely threw Gigi and Momo into a panic. Seiko immediately shouted for everyone to grab onto something so they would not get sucked out. The vacuum started pulling them through the large hole the shark created, so they held onto their seats with all their strength. Momo screamed, "You've got to be kidding me. A shark did this," while Gigi just kept screaming in fear, tightly hugging his seat. Seiko then ordered them to put on the oxygen masks in front of them, or else they'd get hypoxemia, which they quickly obeyed. One of Naki's family members called out to her for help, but she just got irritated and told him to protect himself for once. Momo said the situation was getting really bad, and Gigi immediately tried to go to her to help. Momo then told Vamola to enlarge herself and plug the hole with her body, but she quickly realized Vamola could no longer hear or see her, prompting her to say it was no use. Because of that, Gigi was the one who told Vamola so she could hear it. Vamola immediately understood, let go of what she was holding, and just before reaching the hole, she enlarged her bodysuit, and with that, she managed to plug the gap with her body. The air pressure inside returned to normal, causing everyone to fall back down, and Momo commented that she almost bought the farm. To her surprise, another shark pierced through the plane again, this time right behind her, which startled her. One shark after another started tearing through different parts of the plane, and Momo, slipping into a Wild West accent, screamed, "What in tarnation is wrong with these damn sharks?" To which Seiko replied they were up in the sky because they got whipped up by the typhoon. Gigi noticed they were completely frozen and said they were barely plugging the holes. Seiko commented that they didn't know if the way they were stuck in the plane would hold, so she told everyone to sit down and fasten their seatbelts. A concerned Keto member asked Naki what they should do because, at this rate, they were going to crash, but Naki just repeatedly cursed out of frustration. After that, Seiko asked everyone if anyone was hurt or had been sucked out, to which they all answered no. As we were shown the scene outside the plane, she also asked Vamola if she was okay, and she said yes, but the sharks were biting her back. Gigi then asked Momo if she was still there, to which Momo replied yes. Gigi pointed out that it was really cold, so Seiko said the temperature outside was an extreme 50 below, and she voiced her irritation toward the sharks for damaging the plane this badly. That also worried Momo, who said that at this rate, they'd freeze just like the sharks did. Seiko suddenly let out a groan, which made Momo worried and asked if she was okay, and it caught Gigi's attention too. To Momo's surprise, Seiko finally noticed her, shocked that she was there, which brought Momo to tears as she happily said that Seiko could see her now. She pointed out that Seiko didn't react to her earlier, and Seiko immediately understood that the medication must have dulled her senses. She added that it was a bad sign because she could barely sense Momo's presence, and she said that no typhoon like this had ever happened before. She pointed out that it wasn't even summer right now and that a typhoon like this never happens at this time of year, not to mention the fact that there were sharks crashing into them. She commented that this was a huge event. Momo then realized something and anxiously asked if Seiko thought the god of Shimane was refusing them. Gigi started to wonder if it was the evil eye that was causing them to be refused, while Momo thought maybe it was because of their curses, but Seiko quickly clarified that that wasn't the reason. She said that the god of Izumo accepts anyone, and that god would never refuse people in such a way. So, Momo shouted and asked what the hell was going on. Her attention was suddenly drawn to a nose within the typhoon, and that was when she realized that there was no way this was normal. When she stared at it more closely, she began to wonder if what they were seeing was a typhoon human. Gigi questioned why she was calling it that, so she pointed out that there was a nose and even a mouth embedded within the typhoon. Gigi was still confused, so he said, "Hold on a second. What even is a typhoon human?" That's when Momo suddenly remembered Okaru's passionate explanation to her about it. A typhoon human, he said, was a cryptid named by the cryptologist Professor Takashi Nakazawa. According to Takashi, that typhoon is a living being. After collecting eyewitness testimonies of flying eyeballs and noses, he determined that it was a creature that dismembered itself and flew through the air. At that moment, Momo started to wonder what that meant. So was it a cryptid that came from the typhoon? But Okarun immediately corrected her, saying that it meant the typhoon itself was a living cryptid. After that, we returned to the present, and Momo commented that Okarun was crazy about cryptids and that he told her everything about it. Before, she said, the Serpo aliens used Nessie to attack them, so maybe now the enemies were using the typhoon human. Then, the plane they were riding began to turn, which Momo quickly noticed, commenting that it looked like it was circling around. Gigi then said the pilots were probably planning to make an emergency landing at a nearby airport. Momo pointed out that they were inside the empty space and asked if the real world was also being hit by this typhoon, while Gigi was happy, thinking they were safe now. He said they could temporarily go back and wait for the typhoon to pass. Seiko suddenly yelled that they couldn't go back. If they lost this chance, they wouldn't get another until next year. She added that right now, Momo's presence already felt hazy to her, so if a whole year passed, she might forget her completely. She insisted that Momo had to get there today, no matter what. Momo then asked how they were supposed to do that in their situation. The plane was starting to turn back, and they had no control over it, to which Seiko replied that there was something they could do. If the typhoon was going to block their path, then they would have to beat the hell out of it. Momo shouted that there was no way to do that. This was a typhoon they were talking about, but Seiko pointed out that typhoons were governed by principles, just like anything else. She began to explain that they were caused by warm ocean water and the water vapor released from it. She explained that typically, they were formed by these two elements. So they could say that the warm ocean water served as the engine and the water vapor as the gasoline. She said that eliminating either one will extinguish the typhoon. And while she was explaining what the key would be to making that happen, she looked toward the frozen sharks, subtly implying that those might be what they needed to pull it off. After that, Gigi turned to them, and Seiko told Momo to work together with him. Momo tried to reason and asked how exactly they were supposed to take down that typhoon human. Seiko explained that first, she should use her powers to fish for flying sharks, which shocked and overwhelmed her. Seiko then asked Gigi if he had been training his chi properly every day, to which he answered yes. Next, she asked if it was true that he could use his palm wave, and he confirmed again. If that's the case, she instructed them that when Momo manages to fish the sharks, Gigi should hit them with his palm wave and keep launching them toward the typhoon. Momo then asked if that would actually work, while Gigi was confused because it sounded like she wanted him to fire from inside the plane. Seiko explained that if he could control his chi properly, it wouldn't matter if there was an obstacle in front of him. She added that it would be fine because he was gifted. She said she believed Gigi could do it. Momo argued again, asking if they really had to hit the typhoon human with sharks. Wouldn't it just bounce back at them with twice the force? Seiko answered that she couldn't say for sure, but if they managed to cool the water vapor with the frozen sharks, it would quickly turn into water droplets and ice. She said that if they could form new clouds outside the typhoon, the eye would slowly expand, weakening the whole storm. In addition, if they threw the frozen sharks at the base of the typhoon, it would directly lower the temperature of the seawater. She explained that once it lost its heat source, its engine, the typhoon would dissipate, which made Momo comment that that was awesome and said they'd try to do everything they possibly could. Then suddenly, Seiko stood up and began walking, making Momo yell wait, and ask where she was going, to which Seiko replied that they needed to get as close to the typhoon as possible. So, she decided that she would pilot the plane, shocking both Momo and Gigi. Momo, worried, asked if she even knew how to do that, but Seiko simply said to leave it to her, prompting Momo to point out that that didn't answer the question, to which Seiko just repeated to leave it to her, making Momo yell that the old lady had no idea what she was doing. Gigi then walked up to the window and told Momo they should just do what they could, then ordered her to hook the sharks, which Momo immediately did. But Gigi got nervous because the sharks were at crazy speeds, so Momo told him to just hang on and let her focus. Not long after, Momo used her powers and managed to grab one of the sharks, making her cheer in excitement. Gigi praised her and told her to bring it in, which she did right away. Gigi started charging his palm wave, and when the shark came close, he blasted it, causing it to shoot off like a rocket, making both of them scream in joy that they did it. However, when the shark reached the typhoon, it suddenly vanished like nothing happened, leaving the two of them a bit disappointed. They tried to cheer themselves up by saying they shouldn't expect instant results and that they just had to keep going. While the two of them were hard at work with their plan, one of the Kido family members pointed out to their mama that Gigi was launching sharks at the typhoon, to which Naki replied, "And so a great damned fool is born." The member then asked if they should kill them, but she said no, and explained that right now, they were all neck-deep in the same crap together. She added that they weren't exactly going out of their way to help, but if that typhoon really had to be blown out of the sky, then they were going to blow it out of the goddamn sky. Naki then began preparing herself to use a technique, and after chanting the name of her special move, Jennifer Lopez Anaconda, she slammed her 2 fists into the ground, creating a giant hole, impressing her family members. One of them even commented that, of course, they expected that, since she was the most powerful woman in the entire Kido family. Then Naki began climbing down the hole she made, shouting at the typhoon not to underestimate them, calling it a son of a bitch, and adding that no goddamn typhoon was ever going to swallow the Kido family. She descended into the luggage storage of the plane, reached into her purse, and pulled out a perfume bottle labeled Oda Worm. She began pouring it over the items in storage while chanting that their dearest wish must be realized and granted, and that this thing must come forth. After she shouted the word arise, one of the things she poured perfume on suddenly transformed into the Tsukinoko, also known as the Mongolian death worm, which completely shocked and dumbfounded both Momo and Gigi. They were utterly confused as to why it was there, since Momo thought they had already defeated that monster before. The members of the Kido family clung to the worm's body, and as they rode it, Naki said that the great serpent they had spent 200 years growing was killed by Momo Isa, but the great serpents will still lived on. She explained that, by some miracle, they had discovered the eggs of their giant serpent. They managed to hatch one of the worms and fed it livestock until it grew massive, which made Momo shout that that was no ordinary worm and question what Naki was even talking about. Naki added that because they didn't feed it humans, it couldn't use suicide psychic waves, electric shock attacks, or poisonous mist. Gigi then asked how she even brought such a gigantic creature along, and Naki explained that it was easy. If you dry out a great serpent, it shrinks and folds up easily for storage, and when you want to bring it back, you just sprinkle a little water on it, and that's it. Gigi grew irritated, saying they didn't have time to deal with things like that right now, but Momo suddenly shouted for him to wait. She pointed out that the worm was eating the sharks. Naki then encouraged the creature to eat to its heart's content and then spit the shark straight at the detestable typhoon, which it immediately did. Like a rapid-fire gun, the Tsukinoko began attacking the typhoon by firing a barrage of sharks at it. While the Tsukinoko was doing its thing, Momo, amazed, commented that it was flying around like crazy. Gigi called it awesome, but immediately realized it was still technically their enemy, so he probably shouldn't be feeling that way. Momo then said she couldn't understand why the Tsukinoko wasn't freezing despite being out in the open air. Naki called her a dummy and told her never to underestimate a being that was raised underground. The Kido family continued unleashing a rapid-fire barrage of shark bullets at the typhoon human. At the same time, the typhoon seemed to be countering by launching its own shark torpedo attacks. Momo called Gigi over and told him they needed to get serious too. One shark struck solidly near the exit point of the giant Mongolian death worm, creating a hole on the side of the plane, which began sucking everything toward it with powerful vacuum pressure. Because Momo was small, she was easily blown away by the pressure, flung around, and nearly hit by flying debris, which alarmed Gigi. He immediately sprang into action, letting go of the seat he was holding onto. He leaped toward the hole, using another seat's backrest as leverage to try and reach Momo. He slipped through the gap, and as he braced himself against being pulled out, he tried to grab Momo. Unfortunately, just as he was about to reach her, he couldn't manage to catch her, and Momo continued flying away from him. Gigi screamed in sheer panic as he watched helplessly. However, just as Momo was about to crash into the vertical stabilizer of the plane, Zuma pierced through from the inside. With one of his umbrellas, he caught Momo, and with the other, stabbed the ground to anchor himself from being blown away. Gigi was stunned by his arrival on the scene, while Zuma asked Momo if she was inside his umbrella. He closed it and quickly retracted it to check if he had really caught her. Fortunately, he did. Right after, he called out to Fuda, asking him to guide him since he still couldn't see. Then, a frozen shark came flying straight at him, knocking him off balance and dislodging him from the plane. Gigi screamed in alarm, but he didn't panic and moved swiftly to act. Thanks to his quick reaction, he was able to grab Zuma's wrist before he was completely blown away and also held onto the edge of the hole. Struggling to keep their bodies from being swept out, Gigi asked where Momo was. Zuma replied that he was holding on to her. He then called out to Momo, asking her to talk to him. Still in pain, Momo apologized and thanked him for saving her. On Naki's side, she drew everyone's attention and asked how many more sharks they needed to throw at the Typhoon human. Each Kido family member echoed the same question. Naki pointed out that the bastard hadn't weakened at all. Momo yelled at them not to stop, and the message was passed along through each Kido family member until it reached Naki. Except it got twisted into Donut Shop, which made Naki comment that it sounded delicious. Curiously, she asked what the hell those idiots were talking about and shouted that it wasn't the time to eat. One Kido member noticed that the Typhoon human had a nose with sharks sticking out of each nostril and pointed it out to Naki, who immediately told him to shut up and called him a dum-dum. Suddenly, the Typhoon human forcefully sneezed out the sharks from its nostrils. With such speed and force, the blast tore right through the Tsukinoko, leaving a massive hole in it with zero resistance. Everyone was shocked and shaken by how the Typhoon retaliated. Naki was especially distressed by the injuries sustained by her great serpent lord. Momo cursed in surprise, and Naki, seething with rage, declared that a mere god-dang typhoon dared to injure the great serpent lord. She pointed out that the typhoon was clogging its nostrils with sharks and then launching them at them like missiles, which only made Momo even more irritated with the creature. The Tsukunoko's body was completely torn apart and began drifting away from the plane, prompting Gigi to tell Momo that without the worm, they had no way of pummeling the typhoon with the frozen sharks. Momo shouted that it wasn't going to happen on her watch and immediately used her powers to reach for the Tsukunoko's body. She managed to grab hold of it, but due to the powerful suction of the wind, they began getting dragged along. Thankfully, she was able to latch onto the plane again using her powers while Gigi told her to hold her ground. However, she couldn't hold on for long and eventually lost her grip, causing them to be blown away from the plane. They screamed as they flew off, while Zuma was completely shaken by the situation. Gigi informed him that they were no longer on the plane. Meanwhile, one of the Kido members cried out to Naki for help, saying they were falling, but she screamed at him to shut up and called him a simpleton. Despite all that was happening, Momo refused to give up. She declared that there's no way she's letting this happen. She used her psychokinesis and attached a long, invisible hand to the Tsukunoko's body. Because of that, the creature regained shape and appeared to fly again. The Kido family cheered at this turn of events, and Naki proudly boasted that it was the Great Serpent and praised its fantastic power. Gigi was amazed and asked Momo how she was doing that. Momo explained that it was now like a carp windsock. She elaborated that the worm had become a tube, so she used her powers to punch a hole through it to let air flow into its mouth, allowing it to fly like a kite. She then called out to Naki, referring to her as Old Bag, and ordered her to pull the Tsukunoko's head upward. Naki was startled that she could hear Momo's voice. As Momo yelled at her that she needs to climb higher, Gigi nervously asked what she was doing, pointing out that the plane was leaving them behind and they wouldn't be able to throw any more sharks like this. Momo disagreed and insisted they were better off this way. She said they just needed to keep climbing until they reached the stratosphere. Gigi argued it was too dangerous, and just as he was about to say they should head back, Momo cut him off and said no. She explained that if they couldn't defeat the Typhoon human here, they would never make it to Shimane. Therefore, to defeat that Typhoon human, they needed to destroy what was known as the Eye of the Typhoon. Once they reached the stratosphere, they finally saw what Momo was referring to. It was a literal giant eye at the center of that monstrous typhoon. Before long, they reached the top of the eye itself. As soon as they arrived, Gigi called out to Momo, and she immediately ordered him to go straight for the typhoon's eye and blast it with his evil gun at full power. As they drew closer to the pupil of the eye, Gigi said he couldn't use his evil gun properly like this because just holding on to the Tsukunoko was already draining everything from him. Momo told him she would hold him in place using her power, and she also ordered Zuma to help out. After that, Momo immediately used her powers to grab hold of the two of them so they wouldn't fall, and she informed them of it, telling Gigi to begin. Gigi praised her and called her incredible. Then he began preparing to fire his evil gun. He got into position, and shortly after, unleashed a massive evil gun blast at the eye. It passed by the Kido family at high speed, which shocked them and made them wonder what that was. Gigi's evil gun successfully struck the pupil of the eye, prompting him to cheer that it worked. However, the part it hit regenerated immediately, which left both him and Momo shocked and concerned. The eye began releasing electricity and seemed to be concentrating it at the center of its iris. Momo screamed that an attack was incoming and ordered Naki to steer them to a safe position. Thankfully, they managed to dodge it, but they saw firsthand how the sharks hit by it were completely disintegrated. A massive lightning strike enveloped the sky above them after the blast, prompting Momo to comment, now clearly overwhelmed, that their situation was becoming deadly. Gigi pointed out that if they got hit by one of those lightning attacks, they wouldn't survive. With deep concern, he asked Momo what they were supposed to do since his evil gun clearly wasn't working. Momo, irritated, told him he doesn't need to say that to her now. Momo then recalled Okarune's explanation from before, that the Typhoon human itself was a living cryptid, and it seemed like something finally clicked in her mind. She immediately called out to Naki and ordered her to feed the Tsukinoko with as many frozen sharks as possible. Naki turned to her companions and commented that she'd been hearing Momo's voice for a while now, coming from who knows where, then furiously asked where the hell she even was. Irritated, Momo told her not to think about that and just do as she was told, calling her a dumbass. Naki fired back that Momo was the dumbass and explained that if they did what she wanted, their great serpent lord would no longer be able to fly. But Momo pointed out that it wouldn't matter anymore. They were going to dive straight into the eye of the typhoon. That left Gigi alarmed, and he asked if she was being serious, calling the plan crazy and explaining that even getting close to any part of it would get them struck down by lightning again. Naki then accused her of having given up all hope and trying to take them all down with her. But Momo made it clear she wasn't acting out of desperation and hadn't given up hope yet. The only thing she was thinking about was how to bring that creature down. She also told Naki that she was going to settle everything between them and the Kido family once and for all, but for now, she needed her to just get the worm to eat the sharks. Naki, seething with rage, shouted that Momo had no right to order her around. She called her a little shit and asked if she really thought she could just settle things with them like that. But despite those words, Naki still began feeding the sharks to the worm. She declared that she would feed the great serpent lord herself, not because someone told her to, but because it was her own will to do so. She asked the members of the Kido family if she was right, calling them bastards, and they all immediately responded that she absolutely was, and that what she was saying was true. Momo, annoyed, asked what difference that even made. After feeding the Tsukinoko, Naki sent it charging full speed into the eye while screaming, "Here they go." Gigi quickly alerted Momo that a lightning attack was coming. Momo then ordered Naki to fire off the sharks. Naki did as she was told, launching the frozen sharks into the lightning attack from the eye. The lightning bounced off the sharks, preventing it from hitting them directly. Gigi was amazed and said the sharks were acting like a shield, while Momo pointed out that electricity has a hard time penetrating ice. Little by little, they were able to get closer thanks to Momo's idea. But with that progress came fear from Gigi, who shouted that they were about to crash straight into the eye of the typhoon. Momo suddenly ordered Naki to veer off, and she did just that. They successfully flew past the eye, which made Naki question why they were dodging. She thought they were diving into it. Gigi informed Momo that they had already passed the eye of the typhoon, but Momo replied that it was fine and they were all good. She explained that what they were actually aiming for was the typhoon itself. Next, Momo instructed Gigi to fire his evil gun at the sea, which caught him off guard. She began explaining that a typhoon is formed by warm sea water and the water vapor it generates. But, she added, that warmth only exists at about 50 to 100 meters deep, and below that, the water is cold. So, she said, if they stir up the sea water in the eye of the typhoon, it would cool down and the typhoon would naturally weaken. Gigi called her a genius, and Momo smugly replied that she already knew that, so he should just hurry up and fire another blast. Gigi started focusing and began forming the sphere. Then, shouting the name of his signature move, Evil Gun, he sent it flying toward the typhoon with tremendous force, just like Goku unleashing a devastating attack. The blast looked like a massive laser beam shooting downward, and it successfully reached the sea. The intensity on Gigi's face showed that he wasn't letting up, not for a second. As Momo checked their progress, she had to tell Gigi that they still needed more power because the eye was closing in on them. She asked Naki how the shark launch was going, and Naki responded that their tank was empty. They had already spit out everything. She also warned them that the typhoon was approaching and starting to glow. Gigi kept pouring everything he had into his attack, growing more irritated as he wished it would hurry up and cool the sea already. Suddenly, Zuma grabbed Gigi's shoulder and arm, asking if this was the correct direction to attack, which surprised Gigi. Zuma then readied his umbrella and told Fuda to join him in using everything they got. His umbrella started to open and spin rapidly like a massive electric fan, boosting the speed and power of Gigi's evil gun. The blast's area of effect expanded, covering a massive part of the sea, which allowed the mixing of the warm and cold water to happen much faster. Not long after, they successfully mixed the warm and cold layers of the sea, causing the typhoon human to begin slowly dissipating. The weakening of the typhoon human was clearly visible, and before long, it completely vanished, leaving Raya stunned. He couldn't believe that his companions had actually defeated that typhoon. While Daiki watched it anxiously, he suddenly remembered the time when Zuma gave him a place to stay while he searched for a way to return to normal. Zuma had told him not to worry about it anymore, and that he would be the one to set everything right. After recalling that, Daiki immediately asked Raya where Zuma was and where he had gone. Raya, gripping the seats tightly so he wouldn't get blown away by the wind, responded that he didn't know and could only hope Zuma makes it back somehow. Then suddenly, Daiki ordered Raya to take him to the cockpit, which confused Raya and made him ask why he was thinking of that now. Daiki shouted that they needed to help Zuma, to which Raya retorted that it was crazy talk and questioned what the two of them could even do about it. He even pointed out that Daiki couldn't even walk properly. Daiki closed his eyes upon hearing that and remembered a time when his dad brought him into a cockpit to show him around. After that, he told Raya that he knew how to fly a plane, shocking him. Raya had trouble believing what he said, so he yelled that there's no way he knows how to do that and pointed out that it was completely different from playing a video game at an arcade. In response, Daiki explained that his dad was a pilot and would always let him use computer flight simulators. Then suddenly, he apologized to Raya, saying he had been fooling him all this time, which caught Raya's attention. He said that he and everyone else were all such good people, but pointed out that he wasn't like that and wasn't worth protecting. He revealed that he used to bully his classmate, which left Raya visibly stunned. He recalled a memory of how he did that to one of his classmates. In it, he boasted to his classmates that his dad was a pilot, so he'd become one too. His classmates were amazed by him, and one even commented that he was smart and capable of doing anything, so they believed he could really become one. Right after, he suddenly called out to a classmate sitting in the front row and asked about him, calling him Toru. He then belittled Toru, saying he wouldn't amount to anything in life. He pointed out that Toru sucked at school and good for nothing. At best, he said, Toru could probably only become a garbage collector or something. However, contrary to the reaction he was expecting, Toru reasoned that garbage collectors were the ones who kept the town clean, and that it was actually a really good job. After that, Toru even thanked him with a smile, which left Daiki wondering what was going on. After all that, Daiki explained to Raya that he used to look down on Toru, but in truth, Toru was the incredible one. He added that Toru made him realize how worthless he was, which only made him more frustrated. He thought that because of his bullying, he had been thrown into Danmara as punishment. He couldn't even return to the home he used to be so proud of, and that made him realize how much of a fool he was. In fact, he figured that nothing much would change if he just died. It would even be easier on him mentally if he simply gave up. Even so, with tears and determination in his eyes, he said he wants to apologize to Toru. He told Raya that both he and Zuma had taught him something, and that was how to live as a person, the kind of person he wanted to become. Someone kind, strong, and sincere, like him and Zuma, and added that he wanted to be a decent man. And if Raya and Zuma were in trouble, he wanted to be the kind of person who would do everything to help them, leaving a shocked expression on Raya's face. While that was happening, the scene shifted to Seiko in the cockpit, struggling hard as she tried to read the manual for flying the airplane. She kept telling herself that she could endure this, but no matter how hard she tried to hold on and strengthen her body to save her grandchild from danger, she slowly started blacking out due to her illness. Fortunately, Daiki and Raya arrived and immediately called out to her and asked if she was okay, which caught her attention. She was surprised and asked what the two of them were doing there, to which Raya replied that they should let them take over the controls. She expressed her appreciation for Raya calling her Miss, and said she was already on the verge of passing out earlier. Next, Seiko asked if they were implying that they could fly the plane, to which Raya explained that Daiki's dad was a pilot, and apparently Daiki had used flight simulators before, which made Seiko yell in anger, asking why they didn't say that earlier. Raya then helped Daiki into the pilot's seat and gave him a warning to take it easy and stay calm, to which Daiki replied that he understood. While they were beginning to fly the plane, the scene cut back to Momo and her friends as they clung to the floating Tsukinoko of the Kido family. Here, Zuma asked Gigi if they had already defeated the typhoon, to which Gigi replied yes, but he couldn't see the plane anymore. He then asked worriedly how they were going to get back from there. Momo suddenly shouted to wait, and asked where the worm they were riding was going. She called out to Naki to get her attention and ordered her to fly higher and head toward Shimane, to which Naki arrogantly asked if she was joking. She pointed out that she was going to take them directly to their hideout to become human sacrifices, something that seemed to trigger Gigi deep inside. He immediately yelled at Evil Eye not to come out, which caught Naki's attention, prompting her to say that he too would become a human sacrifice. A Kido member then shouted to Naki that there was a problem, but Naki screamed at him to shut up and asked if he didn't see that she was talking. However, Naki's eyes quickly shifted toward what her member was pointing at, and it turned out to be a giant flying shark heading toward them, mouth wide open, ready to swallow them whole. Because of the shock, they couldn't move the Tsukinoko, and while they all screamed in fear, they were completely swallowed by the shark. But just before Gigi and Momo were also about to be eaten, Momo ordered them to jump, so they did, successfully dodging the shark's jaws. Unfortunately, they then began to free fall. At the same time, Gigi could no longer hold back Evil Eye from coming out, and Momo was shocked when she noticed it. Evil Eye acted quickly, positioning himself by the side of the shark and screaming furiously that he would kill all the Kido. He kicked the shark in the stomach with extraordinary strength, causing the beast to start vomiting. He shouted again, commanding the Kido to get out of its stomach right then and there. The strength of Evil Eye's kick was so great that he launched the massive flying shark away, but because of that, Zuma and the others lost their grip. Momo was stunned as she witnessed what happened, while Evil Eye started to realize they were now falling. Still, he didn't care and kept focusing on the Kido, saying he wouldn't let them escape, which made Momo scream angrily that this wasn't the time to worry about that. Momo tried to remind Zuma that he could use his umbrellas, but he told her that he had already used up both of them. Despite the danger they were in, Evil Eye was just laughing beside Zuma and actually enjoying the fall. In response, Momo came up with an idea and ordered them to hold on to each other. Evil Eye refused and said he didn't want to, so Momo got mad and yelled for them to just do it. She explained that she would use her power to act as a parachute. When Zuma and Evil Eye held on to each other, she began activating her powers and wrapped them with it. But unfortunately, it didn't work and their fall didn't slow down, which alarmed her. Evil Eye kept pushing Zuma, telling him to let go, which angered Zuma, who then said he could kill him. Momo pointed out that she couldn't form wings while she was holding both of them. Then suddenly, she noticed something ahead of them, and it turned out to be the plane, and she was shocked that it had come back for them. Inside the cockpit, Daiki immediately said he could see something, to which Seiko replied that it was probably Momo and the others. Using her suit while blocking the hole in the plane, Vamola told Seiko that they would see Gigi and the others as long as they kept flying straight. She added that they just needed to maintain their speed, to which Seiko praised her, but also asked how she figured out their location even though she wasn't looking at their path. As for Momo's situation, she shouted for the two of them to leave it to her, She said she'd grab onto the plane when it passed by. She prepared them, but the two continued arguing, as Evil Eye still refused to hold on while Zuma was growing more and more irritated with him. As the plane got closer, Momo, using her powers, managed to grab onto it, all while still holding on to both of them. After a little while, Daiki was able to successfully pilot the airplane, and they arrived at an aircraft landing area. Once they got there, Daiki slowly landed the plane, and soon enough, they were back on the ground. Joy and relief were clearly visible on their faces, and Raya even teared up as he praised Daiki, saying he really managed to fly the plane, and it was awesome. Meanwhile, in the passenger area, Momo's group was gathered. Evil Eye got mad because they weren't flying anymore. Momo nervously admitted that she really thought it was the end for them, while Zuma was in disbelief, touching a shark inside the plane and commenting that he couldn't believe there was a shark. Vamola approached them and informed them that she was getting bitten on the butt earlier by the sharks while she was blocking the hole. She added that their time in empty space was about to run out, which worried Momo, who immediately ordered everyone to get back to their seats. She hurried them to move, and when she pointed out to Evil Eye where he should sit, he stubbornly yelled that he didn't want to. She also got mad at Zuma and told him not to just stand there, which made Zuma angry too, pointing out that he couldn't see. Vamola then helped him to his seat. As the timer rapidly ticked down, it caught Vamola's attention, prompting Momo to shout in alarm for everyone to hold on. Evil Eye then made things worse by saying he wanted to see outside, and he's going out, prompting an irritated Momo to tell him to sit down, calling him a blockhead, and warning him not to make her tell Okarun what he's done. A little later, they finally exited empty space, and the surroundings returned to normal. While Evil Eye was clearly bored, Seiko was shocked at what had just happened, and Momo finally breathed a sigh of relief, saying thank goodness nothing happened in the real world. On one side of the airplane, Momo overheard two women talking. One of them said that when the typhoon got close, she feared something might happen. The other replied, thank goodness they arrived at the airport safe and sound. One added that, actually, it looked like the people earlier with knives just suddenly vanished, which made her wonder what really happened. The other commented that it was kind of scary and questioned if it really wasn't just a dream, leaving Momo speechless upon realizing the civilians had noticed. While that was happening, the story shifted to where the Kido family ended up. There, Naki screamed furiously, asking what the hell was going on. She was confused about where they were, saying it felt like they were in the goddamn Bunas. Some members of her family were inspecting the giant shark. Others were jumping around, saying they felt as light as feathers. One asked if the air was thin for them too. Naki got completely pissed and started cursing, thinking Momo had set them up. She said Momo's whole plan was to use them however she wanted before sending them off to some faraway place. As the Earth was shown from space, Naki declared that Momo would never get away with what she did and swore to tear her to pieces, saying she better not forget that. As she said this, it was revealed that her family and their Tsukinoko had landed on the surface of the moon. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to the Serpos, who seemed to have some connection to the Typhoon human. One of them commented, while watching their high-tech hologram screens, that the operation had failed. They said they teleported that typhoon from the Philippines thinking it would take the airplane down, but they didn't expect it to be forced to dissipate. They then checked their data on Momo and remarked that she was an exceptionally dangerous being, and while they prefer not to get close, maybe their odds could improve through hand-to-hand combat. If they didn't do something soon to solve this, Count Saint Germain might get his hands on her. One of them added that it would be necessary for them to send in a large number of troops. After that, the scene cut to Okarun's school, where several police officers and ambulances had gathered. The perverted teacher, Murakami, was already arrested, and Koki was being interviewed. She told them that Murakami had threatened to leak her photos in just her underwear. The officer interviewing her said he understood and told her she could go home now, so long as she agreed to come to the station the next day to give a detailed statement. Afterward, Queen Sensei asked if she was okay and praised her for doing the right thing, but she refused the praise and said she was actually the one to blame for all of this. On the other hand, Ira was on a stretcher being taken into the ambulance, overacting to get Okarun's attention. It worked, and Okarun volunteered to go with her. Rin asked if she should come along too, but Ira replied that if possible, she wanted Okarun to come alone. However, her plan was foiled when Queen Sensei said she'd be the one to accompany Ira and sent Okarun and Rin home, leaving Ira shocked, while Rin quickly complied. Not long after, the ambulance started moving, and Ira, trying to be cute, asked Okarun to promise he'd visit her. Sakata nodded in approval, saying Ira always kept her chin up no matter what, while Okarun and Rin expressed concern for her. After that, Okarun asked their class rep if she was okay, and she said yes, explaining it was thanks to Ira and Koki protecting her. Okarun then remembered Hase and asked how he was doing. As it cut to him panicking inside the ambulance, Sakata commented, "Who even cares about that guy?" He added that more importantly, their case still wasn't solved, getting Okarun and Rin's attention. He said according to the young lady, Murakami, just like Koki, was instructed by someone to collect abilities. Okarun asked if she meant that someone else was trying to steal Momo's powers too, which made Sakata wonder why he brought up Momo. He explained that nowadays, criminal organizations were turning into secret societies. They used to be easy to find, but more recently, they'd gotten so good at blending into society that nobody knew where they were or what they were doing, calling them completely invisible now. He even mentioned a story from overseas about an old man driving a tractor who turned out to be a mafioso. He added that usually, members of that kind of organization didn't even know each other's names or faces, prompting Okarun to ask how they could stay organized with a setup like that. Sakata answered that they did it through outsourcing, meaning they contracted out their crimes. It was more cost-effective and left fewer trails, but he was sure there were other reasons too. Although they were said to be part of an organization, they were acting separately, unaware of where the enemy was or who their allies were. Okarun tried to reason, saying that if that was the case, then there was no way for them to reach the true mastermind behind everything. But Sakata replied that he wasn't so sure about that, and pointed out that they weren't a monolith. Organizations that don't treat individuals as people because of cost-effectiveness or whatever else will inevitably start to break down. In a firm tone, he added that what's important now is their connection with comrades they trust. He suddenly opened his school uniform and revealed a t-shirt with the logo of the History and Culture Research Club, declaring that if the bonds within their club were strong, then they had nothing to fear from any enemy. Okarun smiled and commented that if that's the case, then there was still hope, while Rin cheerfully said that Sakata really knew just what to say. However, instead of showing gratitude, Sakata pointed at their class rep and said she wasn't a very good judge of people, so she needed to be more careful. Rin disagreed, insisting that wasn't true. While those two were talking, the first comrade that came to Okarun's mind was the cute face of Momo, which brought him a sense of calm. But the moment was cut short when Sakata suddenly called out to him and asked if he's the first person to come to Okarun's mind when he mentioned the word comrade, which caught Okarun off guard and made him sheepishly agree. Sakata then said that if anything should happen to him, Okarun shouldn't hesitate to rush to his side so they could combine right away, something Okarun agreed to, albeit reluctantly. Suddenly, Manjuro arrived and rushed toward them, immediately drawing their attention. Sakata wondered who he was and asked if he was a friend or foe. Manjuro explained that he was there because his master told him to protect all of them. Okarun then asked if he was referring to Seiko as his master. He said his master had been attacked by a mysterious group and was now worried that Okarun and the others might be targeted too. He also added that his master had told him to hand over what he was carrying to him, which left Okarun puzzled. In the next scene, Okarun and his friends went to the school's nurse's office after buying snacks like onigiri and yakisoba cups. Okarun asked if they were sure it was okay, wondering if Queen Sensei might get mad at them. While sipping his noodles, Sakata said, "So what if she gets mad?" He was scared because he thought she'd be angry, but if he didn't care whether she got angry or not, then there was nothing to fear. Okarun was left speechless and asked what he was even talking about while also eating his noodles. Manjuro, who was handing out tea, told them it was fine because they had Queen Sensei's permission. On the girls' side, Koki asked Rin what they were supposed to do with the cup noodles, so Rin explained that they would wait 3 minutes and then pour out the hot water inside. Okarun then called out to Manjuro, catching his attention, and asked if he knew Queen Sensei. Manjiro was surprised and asked back if he hadn't told Okarun that. Manjiro explained that Queen Sensei had once brought a student for an exorcism, which shocked Okarun since he didn't know she'd done that. He also added out of nowhere that, incidentally, he was younger than Queen Sensei, which completely stunned both Okarun and Sakata, who asked in unison if that was true. When he followed it up with a fun fact that one of them was a total masochist, the two were even more dumbfounded and immediately asked which one of them it was. After that, on the topic of age, he revealed that he was 36 years old, which made the two shout that he was getting way too personal. While the boys were having their loud conversation, Rin and Koki quietly and happily ate their cup noodles, agreeing that they were really delicious. Afterward, Manjiro brushed off the topic and moved on to the more serious issue, that Okarun and his friends were currently in dire straits. He was sure Okarun was aware that he and his friends were already being targeted. He informed them that someone out there was forcing a sort of competition where participants had to use Kazuka knives to collect yokai abilities. While handing tea to Rin, he added that the guild of exorcists they belonged to was already investigating the incident and advised them to be extremely careful until the culprits were caught. Okarun reasoned that even Miss Seiko had been targeted, which meant they weren't just after yokai powers. Manjiro replied that the culprit was instructing agents to collect yokai abilities, but was also allowing them to use them. Maybe they had another goal, but it was still uncertain. Sakata replied that he understood and said he would take care of it. Okarun then asked Manjiro what the wrapped object he gave him was. Manjiro opened it and explained that it was something Seiko wanted him to have, saying it was a weapon for self-defense. Sakata excitedly asked what it was and protested that it wasn't fair for only Okarun to receive something like that. Manjiro then said that it's because Okarun needs a power right now. When they opened the long box, they only found a small stick inside, which left both Okarun and Sakata speechless. Sakata laughed and teasingly pointed out that it was just a piece of charcoal, while Okarun got slightly angry and asked if it was just one of Seiko's practical jokes. Manjiro seriously responded that it wasn't and said it was a proper weapon. He told them it was an ogre club, which shocked Sakata upon learning what it was, and made Okarun nervously ask if that meant it was really powerful. Manjiro replied that he didn't know, prompting an annoyed Okarun to ask how he was supposed to use it. Manjiro said he couldn't say, which made Okarun yell in frustration that it really is a prank. After that, Manjiro said that his master had told him to train Okarun, which shocked him and made him ask if he was serious. While Rin continued teaching Koki how to eat the things they had bought, Manjiro also asked Okarun to keep the item as a talisman. Sakata then called Manjiro Paisen and asked if he could ask a question. Manjiro said sure and asked what it was. Sakata asked what Queen Sensei's type was, to which Manjiro replied that he was her type, prompting Sakata to yell that he was lying. Manjiro pointed out that he said that because she was extremely kind to him, so Sakata countered that she was kind to all of them. While this was happening, the story shifted to Momo and the rest of their group, who were now riding in 2 taxis. At the window of one of the taxis, Momo was looking out, staring intently at the night sky. She started remembering Okarun and how he used to look at her with a blushing face, which made her blush too, and think that once she returned back to normal, he might finally confess his feelings to her. She commented to herself that the idea was making her feel a little nervous, but her thoughts were suddenly interrupted when Evil Eye loudly called her, completely ruining her mood. While stuffing his face with food, he shouted at her to give him more of the dojisukue manju he was eating. In anger, she shouted back that there wasn't any left because he had already eaten all of it. Because of that, Evil Eye called her a stingy cheapskate, but she quickly silenced him and ordered him to hurry up and turn back into Gigi, while Vamola and Zuma sat quietly in the back seat. After a while, Zuma asked why Gigi was acting like that and pointed out that he wasn't like this before they got on the airplane. Vamola explained that it was because Evil Eye was inside Gigi, which confused Zuma and made him ask if that was like a split personality thing. Not long after, their group arrived at the entrance of the Izumo Grand Shrine, and Momo happily shouted that they had finally arrived and that she would finally be able to return to normal, while Seiko commented that it looked like they had somehow made it on time. A resident priest came out to greet them and asked if she was Miss Ayase, which caught Seiko's attention. She said that she was, and that it was an honor to meet him. She also thanked him for accommodating their urgent appeal at this time. However, unexpectedly, the resident priest brought bad news and reluctantly explained that he was sorry to say this, but they were currently in a state of emergency because their precious magic hammer, the Uchide no Kazuchi, had been stolen, making Momo's eyes widen in shock. After hearing that, Seiko, Momo, Vamola, Evil Eye, and the resident priest immediately boarded a taxi, where Seiko told the driver to hurry. Momo asked if it was really a good idea to leave Zuma and the others behind at the entrance, but Seiko said they'd be back soon anyway, and besides, that was the only taxi they could find. The resident priest explained that a phantom ninja thief had suddenly started appearing in the area and was stealing national treasures from temples and shrines. Seiko angrily commented that people who steal are as rotten as they come. Momo asked if they could still make it in time, and Seiko replied that it was still the hour of the ox, so they still had time. Momo suddenly shouted to wait a moment and asked the resident priest if he knew where the phantom ninja thief was. He replied that due to the increasing number of thefts, they had placed a tracker on the hammer. Momo was baffled by that and commented that that was a smart move and asked where it was now. After she asked that, the scene suddenly shifted to a terrifying Japanese-style castle surrounded by a frightening aura. After a short while, they arrived at the entrance of the castle and quickly got out of the taxi and started running, while Momo wondered if this was really the place. Then she asked what about Evil Eye, to which Seiko replied that they'd just leave him in the taxi for now because once they retrieved the Uchida no Kazuchi magic hammer, they would need to return to the shrine as soon as possible. They swiftly climbed the steps and entered the castle, and as they did, Seiko added that if they failed to return to the shrine and perform the ritual before the hour of the ox ended, they won't be able to lift the curse, making Momo curse and worry and shout for them to hurry. Upon reaching the next floor, the resident priest led them to the hammer's location while using his phone. He couldn't believe the item was hidden in a place like this. Vamola asked what exactly the Uchida no Kazuchi was, and Momo told him that he'd probably get a basic picture of it if he just thought about it, while the resident priest pointed out that it looked exactly like the magic hammer they were all visualizing. Momo commented that it felt weird. Why would something like that be hidden inside a major tourist attraction? As they carefully explore the inside of the castle, Seiko suddenly noticed something on their side, so she immediately stopped them and told them to wait. She pointed out that there was someone over there, which gave them all an eerie feeling. Moments later, when they turned to look at the resident priest, a ninja was already covering his mouth and had a dagger pressed to his neck. Momo and Seiko were both shocked upon seeing it. The ninja ordered them not to move, saying that if they did, the man would die, forcing Seiko and the others to stay still. Right after, numerous ninjas started emerging from the shadows of the once seemingly empty, dark castle and surrounded the four of them. Seiko angrily shouted, asking what the hell was going on, while Momo pointed out that this was the phantom ninja thief, but it seemed he wasn't alone. Vamola also angrily called out to the ninja and demanded that he stop what he was doing. Then the ninja holding the priest suddenly commanded them to accept their defeat, saying that if they did so, they might be spared. Those words immediately catching the attention of both Seiko and Momo, as they sounded all too familiar. The ninja began to push the sharp dagger further against the priest's neck, instructing them to hurry up. Momo shouted to Seiko that she'd hold the ninja's blade using her powers and told her grandmother to take them down. But Seiko instead ordered her to take Vamola and go back to the taxi, shocking Momo. Seiko explained that if she left now, she could still make it in time, and instructed her to return to the shrine and perform the ritual. Momo shouted for her to wait and reasoned that if they didn't help the priest, things would get really bad. But Seiko suddenly changed her tone and asked what priest she was even talking about, confusing Momo even more. She added that all she could see was an enemy while looking intensely on the two, then told the ninja and the priest that they could drop the act, further puzzling Momo about what she meant. As Seiko stared seriously at the so-called priest held hostage, the fear and panic slowly faded from the man's face, and eventually, he too looked back at Seiko with calmness despite his situation. Then suddenly, the ninja behind the priest turned into smoke, and the priest's clothing gradually vanished as well, revealing that the whole thing had just been a performance. With the priest's outfit suddenly disappearing, Momo screamed in alarm that a whole-ass pervert just popped out of nowhere, while Seiko questioned what was wrong with her and how she let herself get completely fooled. She pointed to Momo that the man was no priest or anything close to it, and that the magic hammer had never been stolen at all. The mysterious man changed his outfit to something more modern, and Seiko added that they were lured into enemy territory with the aim of stealing their powers. After that, a creature that looked like a chameleon appeared beside the newly revealed man and asked what they should do now that their deception had been exposed, also suggesting that it might be easier to just kill them and hand them over to the Serpoians. But the man responded that it was too difficult, which was why he staged such a scene. The man then asked the chameleon what he planned to do about the situation, and the chameleon yelled defensively as if this was his fault. Momo commented on how icky the chameleon creature looked, while Seiko immediately prepared herself and ordered Vamola to look for an opening and run back to the taxi. Momo shouted for them to wait and pointed out that not even Seiko could take on that many enemies by herself, insisting that she would fight too. But Seiko opposed her, saying she won't. She pointed out that they can't wait any longer, and this was the only way left to lift the curse. Seiko began kicking away the ninjas blocking their path and immediately shouted at Vamola to run towards the exit, which Vamola did. However, the chameleon creature didn't let them do as they pleased. It placed its hand on the ground, and its body started blending into it. Seiko was shocked by what she saw next. Suddenly, a barrier appeared in Vamola's path, and various parts of the castle's interior began shifting and moving. More ninjas started emerging from different areas of the room they were in, and one of them immediately tried to slash at Vamola, but thankfully, she was able to dodge it in time. But unexpectedly, the floor beneath Vamola suddenly opened up, causing her to fall down to the lower level. Seiko and Momo both screamed in alarm at the sight, but Momo was able to react quickly and jumped in after her, reaching out with her powers. Because of that, Momo fell into the hole along with Vamola, and right after that, it slammed shut, causing even more concern for Seiko. Suddenly, the area around Seiko fell into silence, and the swarm of ninjas disappeared, startling her. She then noticed something to her left that caught her attention, and when she turned, she saw the mysterious man bowing to her without any explanation.